If you've been on TikTok or Instagram anytime in the past 2 years, you've probably seen footage of a pet dog or cat speaking with their human. The most famous of these is a dog named Bunny, who is a young poodle mix who hits buttons that correspond to words like walk or outside in order to communicate her deepest desires. It's a system that is used sometimes by speech therapists for humans. Bunny kicked off a hot new trend of bored, quarantined pet owners around the world stocking up on big red buttons and going to work launching their dog or cat to influencer fame. I assumed that this trend would die down once, we had COVID vaccines and people could go outside again and interact like normal humans. That assumption was a bad one on a number of levels. And now I can hardly go a day online without seeing another genius pet hitting my social media feed. I'll be honest, I woke up a little cranky and I saw one of these videos and I fired off a mean tweet about it, as I do. I said, I've held this in for too long. I gotta say it, unless your pet is an African gray or a human toddler in an elephant costume, it can't talk. There I said it. Never Hans is pushing buttons until you make the happy sound and get him a treat. Don't at me. Instead of toddler, I had originally written Western lowland gorilla, but I deleted it because I honestly just was not in the mood to get into a fight about animal communication, and Coco the gorilla is kind of a hot button topic there. It took approximately 30 seconds for that fight to happen in my replies anyway. And honestly, I can't blame them. I get why. It's because it is, in fact, a really interesting fight to have for several reasons. Number one, it's not about a deadly pandemic or, global warming. The future of the human race does not depend on the outcome of this argument. And number two, there are valid points on all sides of the debate. And also, number three, animals are fun. We all like animals. So after thinking about it a bit, having my coffee, I decided, you know what? Fuck it. Let's make a video about it. So a few replies that I got illustrate the most common misconceptions about this debate over whether or not certain animals can use human words to communicate with humans. For instance, one person pointed out, many birds, not just African gray parrots, can talk. But talking isn't communication. Possessing the physical attributes that allow an animal, human or otherwise, to form words that we can understand doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the meaning behind those words and are using the words in a way that transfers information. Another reply stated, we know from experiments that dogs can have a vocabulary of about 165 words. Why is it so hard to imagine that a dog can put together a noun and a verb? But even understanding that certain words mean certain things, like walk means we put on a leash and go outside, it in no way suggests that it's an easy leap to the next step of forming sentences. And, I'm not just talking about noun plus verb. My dog is a straight up dum-dum. I love him. He's very dumb. And he understands certain noun and verb combinations when I say them, like Indy walk or get bone or come here. It would be very interesting if Indy didn't just understand when I say those things, but if he could put those words together himself using buttons. But when we talk about communication, we're talking about something even more interesting and complicated than that. We're talking about an animal who so truly understands what we are saying that they can, for instance, create novel combinations of words that they haven't necessarily learned before in that combination. An Insider article on Bunny gives a very good example of that as an opening. The black and white dog then pressed a button, which immediately sounded the word mad. Why mad? Asked Alexis Devine, Bunny's 40-year-old owner. The dog then moved to press the ouch button. Devine, skeptically, proceeded to ask, where is your ouch? After a few moments of hesitation, Bunny walked over to a new button. Stranger, it chimed. Soon after that, she sounded the paw button. Devine pieced together this information. Mad, ouch, stranger, paw. She decided to investigate further. She called over her pet and began to examine Bunny's foot. To her amazement, lodged in between Bunny's toes was a foxtail, an invasive cluster of grass that can penetrate the skin of dogs and occasionally requires surgery. I can confirm, foxtails suck. When Bunny told me stranger paw, I knew that there was a foreign object there. I was able to look and remove it before it required medical attention, Devine told Insider. It's rather easy to imagine a dog that understands the word paw and understands that it refers to each of its four little footsies. So if there is a pain in a foot and it would like its human to investigate, hitting the button for paw makes sense. It's a very concrete one-to-one comparison. It's the rest of it that has me hitting my buttons for red and flag. Ouch would be the next step up in terms of complicated communication. How did Bunny learn what ouch means? And we don't know. She doesn't tell us. But it is in the realm of possibility for a dog to learn ouch. Despite the fact that it's a more nebulous concept. When Indy was a puppy, I taught him how to play by communicating with him in the same way that puppies communicate with one another when they play. They will wrestle and they will bite, but when one of the puppies goes too far and hurts another puppy, the puppy makes a loud-pitched yelp. And at that point, the aggressor puppy generally will immediately stop and de-escalate the situation. So when Indy was a puppy and he and I would play wrestle, if he nipped too hard, I would literally give a high-pitched yelp, regardless of whether it actually hurt me or not. And Indy understood. Yeep means that hurt, please stop. These days, it worked really well because when we play, I can stick my entire hand into his mouth with absolutely no fear of him ever pressing down in the slightest, no matter how worked up he is. He understands. Had I yelled a high pitch, ouch, instead of yeep, then he probably would have understood that just as well eventually. But if I gave him a button, that when he pushed the button, it made that loud, high-pitched ouch, would he associate it with pain? Or would he associate it with, hey, you're playing too hard? Or would he associate it with stop? See how complicated it can get even when we're talking about something that seems as simple as eep, But okay, let's accept the fact that he does associate ouch with pain. Great. Paw, pain, I buy it. But then we get to Bunny pressing the button for stranger. And it is here, my dear friends, that I have to admit, I'm not just skeptical, I'm actively denying that the dog purposely chose stranger to refer to a foxtail in her paw. I'm not saying that Devine is lying. I am saying she is fooling herself. She has fallen victim to the clever Hans phenomenon. You probably learned about this in high school psychology, so I'll be brief. Clever Hans was a horse whose owner said that Hans could do simple math. The owner would write 2 + 2 on a chalkboard, and Hans would scrape his hoof 4 times. The horse was not actually doing math, though he was being very clever. Hans was reading cues from his owner's body language and tapping his foot until the owner was clearly satisfied. The owner wasn't pulling a scam, most likely. He was fooled too, and his cues were completely involuntary. It's an important lesson for critical thinkers. We see what we want to see. We will fool ourselves time and time again, which is why we developed the scientific method to help ourselves out.
Indy, are you snuggling Daddy's foot? Yeah.
For Bunny the dog to first learn the word stranger is 1 feat, and an impressive one. I imagine it could be done. You could have a person who is unknown to Bunny come to the door, say stranger, and give Bunny a treat. Then have people who are known to Bunny show up, say friend, give Bunny a treat, repeat, ad infinitum. I'm just guessing here. I've scoured the internet. I can't find anywhere where Devine explains how she teaches Bunny these individual words. But sure, let's accept the idea that the dog has learned the word stranger in some way. It is absolutely next level cognition for a dog to think, stranger means person I have met for the first time. That could also mean unwelcome human in my home, which could be a metaphor for unwelcome thorn in my paw. I'm sorry, but no. In researching this video, I've read dozens of articles about Bunny, and many of them mention this anecdote, and not a single one has had the guts to just call this out as absolute bullshit. Not even the New York Times, which was written 5 months after the Insider article where I first saw the stranger paw anecdote. And an interesting thing to note, in December of 2020, Insider reported that after the buttons were pushed, Devine called over her pet and began to examine Bunny's foot. But by May of 2021, the New York Times was reporting that immediately after pressing the buttons, Bunny stretched her arm out toward her owner. Wow, the story just gets more amazing by the day. Again, I don't think Devine is purposely lying, but I do think she has attributed a magical purpose to something that happened coincidentally. And the more time that passes, the more amazing the story of communication becomes. But if it's true that Bunny the Poodle mix took the word stranger and understood it so well that she could repurpose it to refer to an unwelcome thorn in her paw, she has done something that literally no other animal on the planet can do besides humans. As I hinted previously, some researchers do believe that Coco, the western lowland gorilla, may have been able to do this with certain sign language signs. And some people believe that Alex, the African gray parrot, may have been able to do this using his voice. But many, many other scientists who study this are extremely skeptical that we have enough evidence that that's what's really going on, as opposed to trainers simply interpreting random words and gestures as being much deeper than they really are. Alex, by the way, once looked into a mirror and asked his trainer what color, which is how he learned the color gray, which is awesome. That's a really cool little detail. To date, that is the absolute only example scientists have of any non-human animal ever asking any question at all, ever. Any animal that's not a human. Not even like every non-human primate that scientists have taught to use sign language, not a single one of those has ever asked a question. And yet, here we have a Salon headline proudly announcing Bunny the dog that can talk starts asking existential questions. Because Devine says that she once looked in a mirror and asked, "Who's this?" And later, Devine posted a video of Bunny hitting the buttons, "Dog, what dog is?" Clearly an existential question. No, I'm sorry. No, I get it. It's such a wonderful thing to imagine that our beloved pets have rich internal lives that they can express if we give them the right tools, that they can then tell us in English words. I do often think that humans in general, and sometimes scientists in particular, are too quick to dismiss certain animals and their behavior as unintelligent because they don't think and behave the way that a human does. I mean, clever Hans couldn't do basic arithmetic, but he truly was very clever. He had an ability to understand his beloved owner so well that it was almost like he could read his mind. Other humans wouldn't have been able to do that. And some researchers are trying to study Bunny and other animals in a critical way to really understand how much these animals can communicate using those buttons. But all of this really gets to the heart of why I'm annoyed with the completely naive and credulous reporting about Bunny and other animals. Humans have decided that the way to understand these animals is to make them use the language that comes naturally to us. And that is the standard by which we judge their intelligence. And I'm sorry, but honestly, that's really stupid. I grew up I always had my cat with me. And as my life went on, I would have more cats. I've spent a lifetime watching them and interacting with them and, in a way, understanding and communicating with them. You know, as a child, my cat, Katie, was widely considered by others to be a complete asshole. She would let you pet her for a while, but then seemingly randomly attack your hand. But she never did it to me because I always knew when she had had enough pets. You know, I would feel her start to stiffen, become less relaxed. Her ear would flick, her whiskers would flutter. She also had a very specific meow that she would use in the middle of the night when she would bring a dead mouse or bird laid under my bedroom window. She would make this very specific meow until I woke up and thanked her, at which point she would leap off into the night. By the way, please keep your cats inside. They kill a lot of stuff. As an adult, I loved that my snuggly cat Fry clearly had learned the name of his favorite toy, Yarnold, a little mouse. And he would come running just when I said Yarnold's name. And I was more fascinated by the fact that, you know, Fry would tell me he loved me by slow blinking his eyes. And I would tell him I loved him by slow blinking my eyes back. And we would go back and forth like that because I didn't have much of a life. And I was also fascinated by the way that Fry, you know, I would hear him in another room making little chirping sounds. And I would poke my head in and he would be on the floor with Yarnold, you know, hugging him and like licking and biting him. And like, it sounded like he was talking to him. Was he talking to Yarnold? Was he talking to himself? Was he just making random noises? I don't know. But he, you know, Fry had a rich internal life. And whether or not he could communicate that to me in English didn't matter. He could communicate it in his own way. I just needed to pay attention. When I got my first dog, Indy, I realized that I had to learn a whole new language. Slow blinking didn't work anymore. We didn't understand each other. And it wasn't enough for me to just force him to learn English. I felt like I had to learn dog. In the 5 years since, I'm not fluent, but I'm conversational in dog. Like, I now know that a sneeze in the middle of a wrestling match means, hey, I'm just playing. A bow means, hey, can we play? Different postures and facial expressions mean that he's content or alert or listening very intently to try to understand what I'm saying to him in my stupid human language. Dogs are particularly interesting in this respect because unlike cats, they evolved along with us humans, and we actively shaped their evolution. So unlike Indy's wolf cousins, he has more communication options, like the ability to raise an eyebrow or two, usually to show that he wants something because it makes him look extremely cute. Research suggests that dogs almost exclusively manipulate their facial expressions only when humans are looking at them, in an active attempt to communicate. In other words, dogs have already learned to communicate with us in very complicated ways that a lot of people just don't even realize. In fact, dogs went to all of this trouble to evolve quite complicated ways to exclusively communicate with humans, like, you know, the ability to move their eyebrows, which wolves cannot do in general. And what did we do? We bred them until their faces were so squished flat that they're physically unable to communicate with their snouts the way that they would otherwise like to. We bred them until their tails were too short to communicate, or we just straight up cut those tails off. We bred them until their ears couldn't move properly, or we just pinned them until they stuck straight up. And after we purposely removed these methods of clear communication, we then come back and give them buttons from Staples that say existential angst, and we get excited when they hit it. It's ridiculous. On the one hand, I want more people to get curious about the inner lives of animals and what they're thinking. And not just common pets, but animals like cows and pigs and cephalopods, with the latter two being so ridiculously intelligent that they absolutely dwarf the intelligence of dogs. Hell, there's a good chance the intelligence of cephalopods dwarfs that of humans. If more people took that kind of interest, then the world would probably be a better place, not least of all because more people would probably be less interested in eating meat. But at the same time, it helps to think critically about how our own very human perspectives might bias our study of non-human intelligence and communication. If we found an alien life form that wasn't based on carbon, we wouldn't judge it to be lesser than us or try to force it to use carbon. We would deal with it on its own level. And we should do the same with non-humans who don't necessarily think the same way that we do. All animals communicate in some way, within their own species, definitely, and also occasionally between species. Instead of expecting all of them to learn our own language, it's worth remembering that a conversation goes two ways. And if we are truly the more intelligent of the two of us in the conversation, then it behooves us to think critically to make sure that we truly understand what each of us is conveying. Hey, wait, no, Indy.
Sit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Indy, sit. Good boy. All right, Indy. Where's Donut? Where's Donut? Which one's Donut? Which one's
Told ya.
No, that's Dragon. That's Dragon. Give me. All right. Where's Donut? Where's Donut? No. Still trying to go for... No. Dragon's gone. Dragon doesn't exist anymore. Find Donut. Find Donut. Where's Donut? Indy, where's Donut? Where's Donut? Indy, where's Donut? No! That's... God damn it.